I'm John Switzer, and I would like to welcome you back to Black Bear Forge. It's Sunday, and that means I'm getting into the buckets of scrap to see what kind of potential we might have. And I've got this piece of, 3/8 by 1 inch material, so that's about 10 millimeter by 25 millimeter, and a piece of 3/8 round bar. And what I thought I would look at today is a simple hasp like you might put on a shed door or something, a little bit bigger than you'd put on a trunk or a chest or some sort of piece of furniture, but not something so precision oriented that you would put it on the front door of your house. This is just meant to have something to drop a padlock in or keep a door closed that you're okay with rattling around a little bit. And we're going to make the main piece out of this piece of 3/8 by 1 inch bar, and we're going to make 2 staples out of this other bar, and that's how it's going to mount. Very old technology, very reliable. Still works today if you don't mind hammering the staples into your door. Now today I don't think we're going to do any forge welding. This should be very straightforward, pretty much hammer, anvil, forge. Plus you'll probably need a round punch and a slot punch. And you might want a drift that will fit the staple after you get the staple done. But we'll get a better idea what tools I choose to use once we get to that point. The fire's lit. Let's get to work. I'm just going to go ahead and start by cutting this off. What's that look like? 3.5 inches. Just making a guess of what length I need for my staples. I'm just doing this so I can make them both the same and cut them off the same length. Better not to cut all the way through. Try not to hit your hurdy. Now we'll go ahead and put a taper on both ends of these and bend them into a U-shaped staple. I leave these as a square taper. The square taper will be more secure in the long run. Let me see about how long that is. Okay. Try and make the other end the same. I want to compare those, make sure they're relatively the same. Looks like the first one I finished is longer. Looks like it on both ends. So I'm going to draw this one out a little bit more on both ends. Okay, now we need to bend these. The bending fork's a good way to start this. Now you can put barbs on these if you want to. That's one way to keep them in the door a little bit better. That's a little off, so I'll straighten that. Or not straighten it, I'll work it around a little further. By doing the staples first, I'll be able to make sure that the holes I put in the other pieces are just the right size. Yeah, that's pretty good. Those two staples should be pretty close. Close enough for the work we're doing. So the next thing I want to do is work on the actual hasp part. I'm going to start by drawing out a piece here that will scroll up and make to grab with your fingers. We're going to punch a slot to go over the one staple. I'll probably isolate some mass back here, punch a hole in that, and taper between that and that slot just to make it look more graceful. I'm just going to work this right at the edge of the anvil. Try to line your hammer up with the edge here. Now I think I'd like to round this up, so I'm going to go octagon. And then I'm just going to leave that. I'm not going to roll that up until I get the slot punched. Now the punch I'm using is probably a little bit undersized. It's not as wide as this is, so I may take 2 bites at it, take most of the material out and move it. Just keeps me from having to make a bigger punch. It's also probably a little narrow, but I can clean that up either with a file or by drifting this to a larger size. I did cool my punch between heats. It's a heavy enough punch, I'm not real worried about it though. It's starting to bottom out there. Now a slotted bolster this size would be wonderful, but I don't have one. So we're just going to go over the hardy hole. We're going to go side to side to support it as evenly as we can. This does deform it more than a bolster would. So let's reheat that. I prefer to shear that out a little bit cold, but if it's not going to shear, we're going to have to heat it up again. There again, if I'm going to do a lot of these, I would definitely make a bolster and a punch exactly the size I want. But there's always your adjustable bolster, which should work. It's a little hard to hold everything, get it all lined up, but it can be done. So there's a slot. I do have a drift that's probably way too big. I don't want to drive it all the way in, but it'll be enough to nicely refine the shape. It'll still need just a little filing to clean up any sharp, ragged edges. And as I clean up the edges here, it collapses some, but that's okay because that was way too big. But does it fit the staple? Not quite, so the file's going to have to take care of some of that too. I can come out another 1/8 inch on the end and then it should fit. I'm going to go ahead and decide how much of this I want for the hasp. There's no formula or anything else. It's just an aesthetic decision on what you think you might need. Some of that might depend on the construction of the door it's going to go on. But I have no plans for this, so I'm just going to make it look the way I want it to. Our next step then, I'm going to come back kind of a square area there, probably butcher in just because I think it'll make a cleaner in there, and then I'm going to taper from here into that, make it maybe, half of as much as wide as it is right now, something like that. By putting that end in the hardy hole, I'm not going to be crushing this. I'm working here, I'm going to crush my slot. I'm not trying to draw this out real long or thin. I just want it to look graceful. Let's go ahead and punch the hole in here. I'm using the same punch because it's a nice tapered punch. I'm going to go ahead and start drawing this out a little bit just to make a bigger ring that it'll work on easier. I don't want to get too carried away though, but I do want it to work smoothly in the staple, and right now it would hang up. It's a little bit on the tight side. I'm going to work from opposite sides as I do this, so it stretches more evenly. And once it's big enough to fit over this, let's clean it up on the bick we made the other day. I just want to even up the edges and get rid of the rough spots from the fact that it was a square to start with. I'm pretty darn happy with the way it's coming out. And now that will swing nicely on one of our staples. So I think we're in good shape there. Now what else do we do to this? It's going to need a little bit of filing and cleaning up. But I think I would like to do some sort of decorative element there just to jazz it up a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do here is just a little scroll thing there and maybe a little branch here. I don't know, I'm just making this up as I go along. But I'm not going to do that with a chisel, which is the first thought. I'm going to do it with a center punch. I first saw this on some old European tools as a way to create decorative elements. And it can be amazingly effective. I'll try to make sure you don't wander around your line too much. I'm afraid that's not looking as scroll-like as I might have liked, but it'll still be kind of an interesting effect. See if I put another little dot in there. Yeah, I think that'll be okay. People will have to kind of take a look at it, but they'll know there's a decorative something or other going on there. I suppose we ought to touch mark it, but I'll do that on the back of it. Oh, there's my punch pattern. That means this is the back. The next thing I want to do is scroll this end up. Then we'll take it to the bench and do a little filing to the slot, make sure there's no sharp corners. I'm just going to try and roll that up nice and neatly. A fairly tight spiral. It's just enough to get your fingers on. So that is all I'm going to do at the forge, at least at this point. I might notice something that needs to be done later, but presently I think we're done it over here. I mostly want to get that slot filed so the sides are straight, and I'm using a round file so that when I get towards the ends of it, I don't create little sharp shoulders in there. I want nice rounded ends. But be careful you're not filing a bunch of little grooves in there. You got to keep going even. It also pays to tip the file if your file will tip if it's not too tight a fit. And that leaves a little rounded surface and less likely to have a sharp edge. That staple fits, so I don't need to make the slot any longer. I just need to make sure it's even. And take any sharp spots off the inside. There's frequently a little rag from punching. That looks pretty good. So there's no actual assembly to do on this until you install it in the door, and at that point it's just a matter of setting the staples, and I'll talk about that just a little bit more in a minute. So now we have our hasp completed, and of course there's one staple that goes through and mounts this to the door, and a second staple that will go in the door frame or the door. I guess you can mount it either way, and you can put a padlock through or some sort of a little keeper. And that way you can hold your door closed. If it's for security, a padlock would be the way to go, obviously. And if it's not security, I've seen little whittled sticks put in there. You could make a little curly-Q out of iron to drop in there. Something like this thing that I found laying in the scrap bucket could go in there, and that would be one way to just hold that closed and keep your door from swinging open. And this could be a gate latch or a shed door, barn door, something like that. I don't think I'd use it on a house door unless it was a summer cabin and you had to lock it when you leave the cabin for the summer or something like that. Now, depending on your security needs, you can put barbs in these staples and have them toothed so that they don't want to pull out and those barbs dig into the wood. I do that hot with a really fine hot chisel. Don't need very many of them. It's really quite effective. But the other thing you can do is drive this in far enough, or make these long enough so you can drive them in that far, and then bend them over and clinch them. Bend them 180 degrees, drive them back into the wood on the inside of the door, and then they become extremely difficult to pull out. The other option is to make them round and thread them, and then you can put a nut and a bolt on the backside. And again, pretty hard to pull out, but anybody with a pair of bolt cutters is going to get in one way or the other anyways. So simple locking systems like this are not meant to keep the serious thief out. They're meant to keep the neighborhood kids out of your shed, or just to keep your neighbor from borrowing your lawnmower without permission. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button down there. Feel free to stick around, watch some of the other videos, share the videos with your friends. If you would like to provide financial support for the videos here at Black Bear Forge, there are links in the video description for both PayPal and Patreon. Those are merely donations. The content is free. In the meantime, I hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop. Make something, but stay safe, wear your safety glasses, and we will see you for the next one.